When I was 7, I first learned about the Pilgrim story. And my teacher told us that the Pilgrims were starving and that a Native American by the name of Squanto saved them by giving them popcorn. I love popcorn. I thought this was great, but I found out later that that was not the true story. So what is the true story? What have the Pilgrims ever done for us? Hello, my name is Lisa Pennington, and I'm the governor of the Mayflower Society. I think you'd be surprised to learn that the Pilgrims have given us some of the things we value most as Americans. First, democracy. When the Pilgrims first came over on the Mayflower, they didn't have a patent for the land that they eventually settled upon. And so they came together in what's now known as the Mayflower Compact. And all of the adult men got a vote. If they had been in England, they wouldn't have been able to vote at all. In fact, only 5% of Englishmen could vote. But here, they had the right to vote for their leaders, and they did. They elected John Carver as the first elected governor in America. They also had the rule of law. Did you know that the very first law in America was passed in 1623? And that law was the right to trial by jury. And the fascinating thing is the right to trial by jury had first been instituted 400 years earlier in the Magna Carta. And it shows that the Pilgrims knew they were Englishmen and they had those Magna Carta rights, and they wanted to put them in the very first law ever passed in America. And we know this because we have the written law in the Plymouth Deed records in handwriting. And it says that if you were to be accused of trespass or debt or crime, you had the right to a trial by 12 men. And then they cross out the name men and they put 12 honest men. I love that. In 1636, the Pilgrims passed the first law code in America. And similar to what we have today, with some states have propositions where you vote on a proposition, and if it passes, then it becomes law. If it doesn't pass, then it doesn't become law. The Pilgrims started that. Now, we also know that we had the longest treaty in American history, 54 years. It started with Chief Massasoit of the Pokanoket and John Carver of our first governor in Plymouth. And that was about March of 1621. And they agreed to defend each other and to punish their own wrongdoers. And this particular treaty was ratified again in the deed records here, in 1639, and didn't expire until the second generation took over. So remember that very first law about the right to trial by jury? Well, sadly, they had to test that theory in 1630 with the very first murder trial in America, and that was the trial of one of the Mayflower passengers, John Billington, who was accused and tried and convicted of murder, and he was hung. But really the most important trial was in 1638 of the Arthur Peach Gang. This was a group of indentured servants that ran away and then attacked a Native American boy, stealing 3 coats of woolen and also all of his wampum beads. And they ran away to Rhode Island and were captured by none other than Roger Williams, who returned them to William Bradford. And that those 12 honest men convicted all of the gang members and they were hung. Now, why is that important? Well, remember that treaty? Remember the treaty that they had signed with Massasoit that said that we will punish our own wrongdoers. Well, this was proof that they would do it, and they gave justice to that boy. Now, one of the most interesting things is that the U.S. Army dates its traditions to February 17th, 1621, when the town elected Miles Standish the first captain. Now, why is that unusual? Well, in English tradition, to be a captain, you would either purchase your commission or you would be appointed. But here, we elected our captain. Even better, in 1636, they also said that there would be veterans benefits if something happened to you as a soldier. The exact wording was, if you go forth as a soldier and you are maimed, then the colony will take care of you for the rest of your life. Isn't that great? The very first veterans benefits in America were here in Plymouth. But perhaps the one thing that the Pilgrims are known best for is Thanksgiving, a holiday that is based upon gratitude and thankfulness. We know from the writings of William Bradford in his journal and the letters home that Edward Winslow published that there was a 3-day feast. They invited Chief Massasoit, and he brought 90 men and others. And we believe the others to have been the women and children who were also gathering in their harvest on the other side of Town Brook. Imagine what an amazing experience that must have been. And one of the most important things about Thanksgiving is that the Pilgrims and the Native Americans were born on different continents. They had different religions, they had different backgrounds, yet they were able to come together and make it work for 54 years. And in our country, in a land full of immigrants, but with the same kind of diversity, the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag show us that it can be done. Do you know where the very first American baseball game was played? Right here in Plymouth, on Lyden Street, by the Pilgrims. And we even know the date because it was recorded in William Bradford's journal. It was Christmas Day of 1621. It turns out that some of the settlers were separatists and didn't believe that Christmas, because it wasn't in the Bible, should be celebrated, so they went to work that day. But there were others who said they wanted to celebrate Christmas in their own way, and William Bradford allowed them to do it. Well, their own way happened to be playing stool ball in the middle of the street. And when William Bradford returned in the afternoon from work, he saw them playing stool ball in the street and put an end to the game. And the important thing about stool ball is it was invented by milkmaids. It is a medieval game that became the precursor to baseball in America and English cricket. So, whenever you think about the very first game played in America, think of Pilgrims and think of Christmas Day, 1621. So what have the Pilgrims given us? Perhaps some of the things that we value most as Americans, like democracy and voting rights and the rule of law and statutes and the right to trial by jury, veterans benefits, military services, and celebrating thankfulness and gratitude. The Pilgrims have given us the things that make us the very best of who we are. Oh, and I forgot the most important things perhaps is America's pastime. They gave us baseball.